Yo, welcome to Spectator Sporting. I'm Zach Roach, along with my partner, Mr. Adi Wally, aka the Architect. We got a big show. We talking boxing, and if you know we talking boxing, we had to bring Byron back in the building, and we had to bring T.I.M.E back in the building to come help school us and figure out what's gonna happen with these fights. We got a big time fight coming up. Errol Spence, 27-0, 21 knockouts, versus the great Hall of Fame boxing Manny Pacquiao, 42 years old, 62-7, 39 knockouts. Pacquiao coming off a big time victory over Keith Thurman. A lot of people thought he was going to lose that fight. He did not. He looked well and beat Keith Thurman. Errol Spence just came off a pretty tough fight. Garcia gave him a little go, but as the fight went on, Errol Spence took control and dominated the fight towards the end of that fight. So now we are here. I think you can argue, you can say both fighters have not faced someone like each other. I mean, so that might be fair to say. So Tia, I'm going to start with you. How can Manny Pacquiao pull off the upset? Because I would guess that Errol Spence is the favorite.
Errol Spence is the favorite in my opinion. And I don't think Errol Spence gets a lot of credit for actually what he does to opponents. He's aggressive. So I think Manny Pacquiao needs to be as aggressive as Errol Spence. I believe the defensive adjustments are going to be serious though. Errol Spence does attack you from angles similar to what a Manny Pacquiao would do. If you look at the tape, he's a body puncher. You know, me and the guys had a conversation and I was making an argument that his best shot might be the hook to the body versus any other shot. So can Pacquiao make Spence chase him with punches? Can he make Spence change up his game plan as far as what he wants to do to Pacquiao? Can he be unorthodox? Volume punching. Throw punches. Manny Pacquiao is known to throw punches. He does it well. He's done it well his whole career. He has the endurance and the stamina. He's a world class, one of the best boxers in the history of boxing. And if he can do those things, counter punching, defensive adjustments, and volume punching with the normal aggression level, he could win the fight.
And like I say, Pacquiao 42 years old and still getting big time fights. You got to give him credit, if anything, for that. So Byron, talk to me. I know you are a huge Manny Pacquiao fan, and Pacquiao, and deservedly so. Pacquiao's been great, but he's not favored in this fight against Errol Spence. Yeah. What does Pacquiao need to do to show everybody that he can beat Errol Spence?
I just want to say that Manny Pacquiao is the greatest fighter of our generation. You can go in the comment section of this video and I'll argue with you.
I'm done going to
right, up and down. The stats don't lie. The reason why Manny Pacquiao is going to have a successful strategy in his fight is because he's going to take away Errol Spence's favorite weapon, and that's the jab. And the reason why you take away a jab from a high caliber fighter like Errol Spence is because he's a taller fighter and he's used to fighting people at 147 by manipulating and controlling them with the jab. The jab sets up his vicious body attack because he keeps them at range. The reason why Manny Pacquiao is such a yin to his yang in this aspect is it's very hard to jab Manny Pacquiao because Manny Pacquiao doesn't sit in front of him. Manny Pacquiao uses angles. He uses crazy combinations where he throws at wild angles. When you try to go on offensive, he looks defensive, but he's throwing a crazy punch. Yeah. This is Manny Pacquiao. And I think if you look at the Shawn Porter fight, Shawn Porter being a fighter that doesn't have the hand skills that Manny Pacquiao, but he showed that if you disrupt that jab, you can make a fight ugly enough to where you can land on Errol Spence. Now, can Manny Pacquiao not only implement this strategy, but also bring Errol Spence out to the deep waters of the 9th, 10th, and 11th championship rounds? That is where this fight is going to be won. Errol Spence has a very, very bad habit of taking off 8, 9, and 10. And if he does that in this fight, he's going to basically dig his own grave.
I hear you. So, like, it's very interesting. So, Adi, anything, can you see Manny Pacquiao, what can he do to pull off the upset?
Well, you know what, I'm not worried about Manny Pacquiao for the first 3 to 5 rounds of this fight, but after the 5th round against Keith Thurman, Manny Pacquiao lost the 6th, 7th, and 9th round of that fight, and Keith, and Good thing for Manny Pacquiao that he landed a vicious body shot, rib shot to Keith Thurman in the 10th round to get the momentum back in that fight and ended up winning that fight. Okay, now Errol Spence Jr., he has excellent endurance, all right? He knocked down Sean Porter in the 11th round, and he gave Danny Garcia plenty of work in the 11th round. Now, if Manny Pacquiao can keep that energy up and aggressiveness up in the second half, and especially the later rounds of this fight, yeah, he can pull the upset, but 42 years old, can he fight 12 solid, energetic, aggressive rounds? If he can do that, then yeah, he can pull the upset.
Yeah, that's what it's gonna come down to, because Pacquiao, 42 years old. I think for the first few, as the fight gets to the end, both of you said it. You said it too, Byron, for the opposite reason. I think all y'all said it's like it's gonna come down to them later rounds. I think that's what the fight's gonna come down. Who's gonna be the strongest? That's who's gonna win the fight. So who's gonna let me? So is it a chance that I'll start with you, Byron? Is it a chance that, okay, we talk about what Manny Pacquiao, is it a chance that Pacquiao can come in this fight and get dominated by Errol Spence if it comes down to it?
I don't see him getting dominated by Errol Spence. I don't think it's Errol Spence's game to dominate. I think Errol Spence, if he gets the jab on you, he can have a very tactical fight to where he can beat you up for 12 rounds. He can do that. He can sustain an ass whooping for 12 rounds. Anybody. He can definitely do that.
Right.
But we've seen Manny Pacquiao in wars. We've seen him in fights recently in the top 5 division with the young bull. And, while I agree with Adi that Manny did lose those rounds, Manny was not dominated the championship rounds of that fight. That's why he won the fight against Keith Thurman.
Okay.
Pacquiao gets stronger as the fight goes on. And we just haven't seen Errol Spence against this type of competition. And when we have, we saw him against Sean Porter. And while Sean Porter did get knocked down late in that fight, had Sean Porter not got knocked down in that fight, he might have won that fight. And that is why I believe that he needs to sustain a strategy that he can implement on Manny Pacquiao later in the rounds. And of course, Errol Spence is he's the top pound for pound in the division. A lot of people put him ahead of Terence Crawford because of the people that he's fought, but make no mistake about it, this kid is absolutely dynamite. I love him. But he has made the mistake of fighting one of my favorite fighters of all time. And not only that, I just feel like once we, go into it a little more, Manny Pacquiao has seen versions of Errol Spence before in his career.
That's all fair points. Errol Spence has had some dominant fights, but the competition in his last 2 fights was better, and he got better fights. And Manny Pacquiao might be the best fighter he's even fought, even at 42.
Oh yeah.
T.I.M., could you see a scenario where Errol Spence actually absolutely dominates this fight?
Surprisingly, yes, I can. And I B Money. I gotta tell you, I don't think that Pacquiao wants to fight the style that Sean Porter did against Errol Spence. Sean Porter's naturally kind of a bigger guy, so he was able to take. Because he mucked the fight up. He mucked the fight up against Errol Spence. He threw off Errol Spence's rhythm. And yes, he took away the jab, but I don't even think it was that as much as some people might say. I think his rhythm in general, timing punches. Errol Spence is underrated as far as his cerebral aspect of how he boxes. When he smells blood, he smells blood, his arsenal comes out. It's like he gets back. It's like 4th quarter, 30 seconds left, give me the ball, I'm gonna score. So I think if he can stick to his game plan and believe in what he feels he can do, whatever it is, whatever happens, whatever comes out, if he can stick to it, it's so interesting because first off, these are 2 southpaws. And I don't think they've fought a southpaw to the other guy's caliber yet, on both sides. And watching Errol Spence my opinion. Watching Errol Spence, I'm starting to notice that he's really good at everything. He might not be excellent at this or that. He's really, really good in a lot of different areas. And he got a nice chin. So I'm not sure that Manny will be able to, stave that off, so to speak. Like if Earl was convicted and he got a couple shots and he saw that his game plan was working and he turned the heat on and he put his pedal to the metal, I don't know what Manny will be able to do.
That is key. It's going to depend on the first few rounds how the fight starts and like what style is going to be established, and then in the ending rounds, how is it going to be finished? So both of y'all made great points. Adi, do you think Errol Spence can dominate this fight? Like really, just absolutely dominate this fight?
Well, you know what, Errol Spence Jr. is usually gets off to a slow start to his fights, all right?
Yep.
And I wouldn't argue with you if you gave Sean Porter 3 out of the first 4 rounds of that fight when they went off against one another. And then against Danny Garcia, Errol Spence didn't really put his foot on the gas until after the 6th round of that fight. And with the body shots, the left hook, the jab, his jab, he throwing it, left to right, whatever. And so now I don't think Errol Spence is going to dominate the first half of this fight, but in the second half of this fight, especially the later rounds, I wouldn't be surprised if Errol Spence is in domination mode.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. I think if Errol Spence is going to dominate, it's going to come in the later rounds. As you get to like the 7th, 8th round, as the fight keep going on, and that's when your endurance comes in. And once again, Pacquiao, who's incredible, that he beat Keith Thurman, 42 years old. We just gotta see. And if he's able to last long and fight, I mean that's.
But I will say this though. I will say, what I say the way Spence can win, and I'm gonna be honest, the caveat is that's the same game plan. If Pacquiao can be convicted in his game plan against Spence, like you got a problem. Like Houston, we have a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm not just saying Spence is going to do this, or I'm saying he can. Right. But Pacquiao can too. You know what I mean? Like,
so who's gonna win the fight?
I'm gonna have to say Errol Spence. I think it's gonna be an interesting fight for the first 5 rounds, 6 rounds. I think when Earl realizes that he can find Pacquiao with his punches more often than not, and again, conviction, knowing that he wants to be methodical in breaking him down, I believe that Earl's gonna win the fight. But it might be a split decision.
Okay. So
it might be. It's not. I don't think it's gonna be a UD. I don't think it's gonna be a majority. It might be split decision.
So you got to go in the whole 12.
Yes.
No knockouts.
There's a possibility, but with these 2 type of fighters, you can't really read it until you see what the game plan is. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you can't, because they both are explosive enough to where once, and again, I'm talking about Errol Spence. Once Pacquiao sees blood, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's another one. He likes seeing when he's
talking about the finishing power.
Yeah,
he can't break faces.
Yeah, like once Pacquiao sees blood, dog, it's like you at 42, you hitting harder than these dudes at 29. You know what I mean? So
that's fair. Byron, who's gonna win the fight? Is who's gonna Pacquiao or Spence? Who's gonna win this one?
Manny's gonna win this fight. And a few months ago, when it was rumored that Manny Pacquiao was going to fight Terence Crawford, I was in a state of mourning because
you gotta relax.
Terence Crawford would have beat Manny Pacquiao up, and the reason why he would have beat Manny Pacquiao up is because styles make fights, and a lot of people pick fights based on prior fights and emotion, but they forget about a very, very important aspect when it comes to boxing, and that is styles.
That is.
Terence Crawford's style is gladiator.
It's impeccable too.
He's going to force you to fight him, and if you fight him, you're not going to dominate a fighter that can knock you out with both hands. Manny Pacquiao fighting Errol Spence is him fighting into his strength. Manny Pacquiao can beat Errol Spence because he beat Eric Morales. Manny Pacquiao can beat Errol Spence because he dominated Margarito. Pacquiao can beat Errol Spence because he had vicious wars against the greatest counter puncher probably ever produced out of Mexico, and Juan Mel Marquez.
Yeah, Marquez.
He has fought in his career fighters that have prepared him for what Errol Spence can bring to the table. Now, can his 42-year-old body maintain a 12-round war with a young bull that is seemingly unbeatable. We had this same conversation 2 years ago when he fought Keith Thurman. And although he fought Keith Thurman off of a layoff, he fought a top 5 welterweight at 40 years old.
Yeah, he did.
I'm 40 plus. That's a miracle.
Yeah.
Why can't I believe that he can beat this fight? In a fight against a prototypical welterweight that he's beaten before. I love Errol Spence. But watching his last few fights, and also the fact that he will not push himself in the welterweight division. He will not fight Bud Crawford. He will not fight Keith Thurman. He will not push himself to be the king of the mountain in the welterweight division. Therefore, I can't say what you're going to do when you're fighting the best fighter that you fought in your entire career. I'm taking Manny Pacquiao.
Ooh, I like it. I like it.
I disagree, but good take.
I like it. Adi, who's gonna win the fight?
Okay, well, you know what? Byron is right. Manny Pacquiao will be the second oldest boxing champ in history, passing for Tally Klesko as the second oldest boxing champ of all time. Okay, no one's passing up my man George Foreman. He was like what, 47?
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no one. Only he was.
It was a mummy. It was a mummy.
So,
Live mummy.
Fortified skin, left, right.
Bold prediction right there. Now, Errol Spence Jr., he has less ring rust than Manny Pacquiao. Errol Spence will be ending an 8-month fight drought, and Manny Pacquiao will be ending a 2-year fight drought. And looking at the tails of the tape, Errol Spence Jr., 5'9", with a 72-inch reach. Manny Pacquiao, 5'5", with a 67-inch reach, okay? And so, Manny Pacquiao, he showed us his power. He showed us his power against Keith Thurman. With the nice knockdown in the first round of that fight. And he get off to a great start. He bloodied Keith Thurman's nose in the 5th round. I talked about how he gave him a nice rib shot. Keith Thurman was losing his mouthpiece and everything. So he has that. I think I think Pacquiao has more power than Sean Porter. Okay, I think Errol Spence finna get some power there, because Keith Thurman was talking about he felt like Pacquiao had rocks in his gloves. He was talking about that. So he's gonna get some hits, and we're gonna see his chin.
We're gonna figure out that chin. That chin definitely gonna be tested.
And Pacquiao's very active. He threw 115 more punches than Keith Thurman in that match they had.
That's crazy.
40
years old. Wow, that's crazy.
Very active. And the thing is, but Errol Spence has never been knocked down in his entire career. And I think after the first 4 rounds of this fight, we're gonna see why Errol Spence Jr. is number 1 in the welterweight division in punches landed. He's number 1 in accuracy on body shots. Now, Manny Pacquiao, he hasn't lost due to a stoppage since 2012 against Juan Marquez, right?
Slump.
Juan Marquez with that witness.
He won night-night.
He was destroying him that round.
He won night-night.
Round. It was at the end of the round.
But you talk again. You said one of the best counter punchers in recent history.
It was a great shot.
It was just it was timing. It was expectation. Like you studied tape. You knew what Pacquiao was gonna do. You had to take shots.
And they fought wars. They knew that's why I was screaming. Like, why would you run in on him like that?
When I saw it,
it was a great shot.
Dramatic, very dramatic, very dramatic, and right before the 6th round bell.
It was right before the bell. And he dominated that round.
And I don't think we're gonna have a dramatic end to the fight like that. But you know what? I'm gonna go on a limb. I think Errol Spence Jr. is gonna win by a 10th round TKO.
I like it.
Let's go, Adi.
I like it.
Just got removed from my Christmas list.
I put you on mine. Don't worry. We're good.
Hey, listen. Both of y'all make compelling points. All y'all make compelling points. And PacMan, he brings a lot to the table. You brought up some good points about how all the fighters he had fought, all the styles he had fought. Errol Spence. You brought it up, both of y'all brought it up. He's never been punched as hard as he's about to get punched hard in this fight.
True that.
So, and Pacquiao, both of them, when they smell blood, they go after it. I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going all 12 rounds, but I got Errol Spence winning by decision.
There we go!
I got Errol Spence winning in the decision. Now, I think it's okay,
baby. It's okay.
The long wolf here. The long wolf.
You always win.
Hey, listen. If Pacquiao win, you got this show. This is evidence you can always come back to.
I told y'all.
Hey, Hey, so before we get out of here, I want to ask both of y'all, since both of y'all are here. Once again, thank y'all for being schooling us, giving us some knowledge.
Love.
Byron, I'll start with you on this one. Y'all talk about a lot of. Let's talk about the welterweight division. That's the 147. That's correct, right?
Yes, sir.
147.
Yes, sir.
Is it a boxer right now that you're looking at coming up? That's like, hey, I know what's going. I know these guys. I know like Errol Spence and all these guys is number one right now. But these guys in a couple years are going to have a real contender on their hands.
You know what? I was going to pick a young up and coming welterweight, but to be truly honest, the 147-pound fighter that I think is going to start to have a rise in this division is Bud Crawford. Bud Crawford is shaking loose of his management and is now a free agent.
Good point.
And
make those
if
fights.
this man starts making fights, I think the world is going to see, which I'm praying that it happens,
I hope
Sean
so.
Porter. If we see Bud Crawford dominate Sean Porter, in my opinion, he's the top dog of the division. And that makes irrelevant what happens against Spence Pacquiao. Spence seems scared of Crawford, and that's how I feel. And with new management, I think his management team is going to force a fight with these two, and I got Crawford in that fight. So therefore, I feel like the dog in the division that's coming is the dog who's been the dog of the division for the past 5-6 years. The one who no one wants to fight, the one who no one wants to see because he's not marketable. But I can tell you this, being able to knock people out and dominate as a champion is marketable.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I got Bud Crawford as being the dog of this division in the near future.
Ooh.
I like that.
Yeah. Same question to you, T.I.M. In the welterweight division, who's coming up that you look at like, hey, he's going to be a problem in the next couple years?
Well, me and B Money was talking about this off camera, you know what I'm saying, just sharing thoughts. And I'm going with it, and I love that take on that because I feel like that's really, and I hope it does happen, just real quick, I hope it does happen because I want more of these fighters to break free of those chains so we get the fights as fight fans that are supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Stop getting robbed of the fights about
You might be right, and I'm not saying you're not, about the Errol Spence and Terence Crawford, but I think more of that was the middleman.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like after 2-3 years, neither one of them don't want to talk about it no more.
Yeah.
But I'm going with a guy named Vito Milanecki. 19 years old from New Jersey. I want to say Newark. I'm not sure. But he is a very slick young guy. He's only got 9 professional fights, I believe. He's 8-1. He just lost his first fight. Very experienced guy. Took him out of his zone, but he's 19 years old. If you get a chance to watch this brother, Vito Milanecki, watch him. He is really decent.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right.
I do want to say, Spence got the WBC and the IBF belts.
Okay.
Manny Pacquiao has the WBA. So all three of us think that it's going to be unified to Errol Spence.
Yeah.
And so once that happens, I guess you'll have Crawford fighting Sean Porter. And then after that, Spence can't have no more excuses. No more excuses.
No.
He got all 3 belts. I can see why he passed up on Bud Crawford, because Manny Pacquiao got the belt.
And it's more money.
And he wanted to unify all 3 belts.
It's more money. I was thinking about it's more money.
Right.
And I have gotten to the point where I'm not going to, get in the trolling section of these young bulls for taking the money fights.
Exactly.
Because the division is dying. You're losing out to the UFC.
It is.
Get your money. And Crawford, due to his management, Bob Arum, wasn't going to get his fair deserve, and he wasn't going to give Spence his fair deserve for that fight. So,
they both.
Right.
Yep.
Fighting Manny Pacquiao was profitable for those 2 entities, and that's why that fight had basically happened. And I think a new management with Crawford, the money aspect will not be an excuse. It'll be, are you scared of this man or not?
I hope so.
All right, well, we're going to see, man. I want to thank once again Mr. Byron, Mr. T.I.M. for coming over here talking boxing with us. boxing with us, schooling us. I'm Zach Roach along with my partner, Mr. Adi Wally, the architect. In the meantime, in between time, you've been watching Spectator Sporting. Go ahead, subscribe to that YouTube page, hit that bell. In the meantime,
I'm arguing in the comment section.
Peace.
Me too.
Send your comments. Send your comments. Great show. We out. Spectator Sporting.